Welcome to People Love Process. In this movie, I want to showcase how to create and use both what I call line work brushes, and that's just my own definition. I'll show you what I mean by that and how to pull it off and how to create your own custom ones, and calligraphic brushes in Adobe Illustrator. Now, both of these type of brushes give you an organic flair, but have different requirements regarding the tools you use to compose and create your design. So we have a lot to go over, so let's dive right into it. Now, of course, you can do this in analog using a brush pen like this, and you've seen a previous video that I produced where I took an ink drawing and then we just image traced it and colorized it within Adobe Illustrator. Now that's always a way you can work. You don't need to do it digitally. But in this one, I want to cover two primary ways digitally within Adobe Illustrator. So first, we're going to focus on creating an art brush, because the line work brushes we want to use, which you can see 4 of them down here. We have a long one, a large, a medium, a small, and an extra small one. And the way the line work brush works is I want to show you how I created that. So this is the artwork that we're going to work with here. And the way you can create this in Adobe Illustrator without having to use a scanner to scan in a drawing or anything like that is we're going to use a tool called the blob brush. I've always liked the name blob brush. We're going to click into it and we're going to make sure we have certain things set on. Now, if you have pressure set on any of these and you're using a mouse, which I'm using right now, pressure will only work with devices that provide pressure. So in this context, if you're working in Illustrator, you would have to have a tablet set up to do pressure, so the stylus could apply pressure, whether you're drawing lightly or heavily on the tablet. And we'll cover that a little later in this movie. But I want to first start off in an environment that probably the majority of people have, and that is you're not using any kind of special device. You're just using a mouse that came with your computer or your laptop. And this, you'll be able to do everything I'm going to show you without any kind of extra device. Then we're going to jump in to using a stylus, because you get far more control and nuance when you do that. So this, you can keep pressure turned on. It doesn't matter if you're using a mouse like I am right now. It's just going to ignore it and act as if that's not turned on. So you don't even have to touch this or adjust it. I recommend for what we're going to do to turn these off. And on the fidelity, this is how accurate do you want it to respond to how you're going to be drawing on screen in Illustrator. I always prefer having it be as accurate as possible. So this is all the way to the left. Smooth means the algorithm is going to try to simplify what you actually drew, and you don't want that. So we're going to do this, and I think we'll start off with about 2 points. So I'll change the size and I'm going to click OK. Now we're going to go up here to this and we're going to zoom in, because if I turn on this guide, you can see that I want it to be horizontally straight, but right now it's kind of crooked. So this is ultimately going to be turned into an art brush. So we want to first fix the orientation before we do any more editing or customizing. So I'll just select it. I'll go to rotate. I'll find an anchor over here, and then I can rotate it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because this is an imperfect methodology. So we just want to get it roughly around that, so it's horizontal, because all an art brush does is it takes the vector art that you create the art brush in, and it wraps it along a path like this one we'll be demonstrating. And if it's longer, if the path is longer than the artwork that creates the brush, it just duplicates the brush. So you want it to look somewhat realistic, or believable, that is, as it's doing that. So we're going to turn off this horizontal line. That was just to guide us. We'll go ahead and zoom in here. And we're going to use the blob brush, because let's say you're working on this and you decide, I kind of want it to have more you know, profile the shape up here that's a little more organic. So we're going to take the blob brush and we'll just go ahead and draw that out. So all I'm doing again is I'm using my mouse, so you don't have to be super precise. And once I've done that, if I go to keyline view, you see how it's fused it into the other shape. And to get rid of these, just direct select them like that and just hit delete to get rid of them. So you can see how that works. Now, if you don't like something, you have the eraser tool, which is kind of like the blob brush in reverse. But unfortunately, if you double click in the eraser tool, there is no fidelity. So this kind of has the behavior of oversimplifying what you did. So if I take this and let's see what the size was, I forget. We'll make this the same size too. Click OK. If I go over here and let's say I want to just kind of draw it like this, kind of simplify this edge like that, as soon as I let go, it's going to kind of simplify it. And in my opinion, I wish it had the fidelity control so you could adjust it to be accurate. So it would do exactly how I did it, like it does with the blob brush. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And I just wanted you to be aware of it. But that's how you can cut away stuff. If you think this is too blobby like this, you could go like this over here. But again, it'll kind of simplify it because the algorithm's built in. There is no flexibility to adjust that or turn it off. So just be aware of that. And I'm going to go in here. Maybe we go like that to simplify it. I think this is too straight. So we'll go back to the blob brush and I'll adjust this. Now I should point out that the color I'm using isn't your default black in Illustrator. If you're creating brushes, and it doesn't matter if you're in a CMYK environment or RGB, I'm in CMYK here, but if you're building a brush set, and I made this mistake years ago, is I use default black in Illustrator. Well, when you bring a brush in that's default black in Illustrator into an RGB environment, it looks like a dark gray. It looks like a tint of black. And it's because it's not a true RGB black. So what I like to do is I'll just open this up. You can see I create what I just call inky black. That's just my name, knowing that it's in a CMYK environment, but this is the exact break I do. Why do I do that? Because this will convert to an RGB black. So if you go to RGB, notice it's an RGB black. So I do this to be safe. So when I create brushes, whether it's an art brush, whether it's a scatter brush, I'm always using an inky black to ensure that whether it's used in a CMYK environment or whether it's used in an RGB environment, it's going to work well. So just make sure you're using an RGB equivalent black. But whenever you get to what you think the brush is, I think we'll do one more edit. I think this is a little too hefty down at the bottom. So let's go ahead and cut into this and kind of give it more variation. Again, doesn't have to be perfect like that. Let's zoom out. I think that's good enough to demonstrate. So we're going to turn this into a line work brush. So let's go ahead and open up our brushes here. You can see I have this small group of brushes, which large, medium, small, extra small, and those right here. We're going to add one that will add it to the bottom of the list here. So we'll click here. We're going to go to Art Brush. We're going to click OK. It'll bring up this. You can name it. So we'll just call this Beta Brush like that. Notice you can say scale proportionally, stretch to fit stroke length, or stretch between guides. We want to have stretch to fit the stroke length. And then on the colorization, if you want to be able to color it, you have to go tints. That way, whatever the path color ends up being will be the color of the brush that's applied to it. In this context, art brush, you can pick which direction you want it to go. This one's fine. Everything else I'm going to leave as is, and we'll click OK. You can see it's added it down here. Now, this is a pretty big brush. Now, if you wanted the brush to be smaller because you know you're going to be using it on a certain illustration and that's at a certain size, then just build your brush at the size you want it. So maybe you want the size to be like that. And again, you can get different variations. Maybe you distort it so it's a little lower profile like that. So there's a lot of flexibility to this. And again, we can just click on the brush, go to Art Brush, click here, and we'll call this one Beta Brush 2. We'll keep all the same settings. We'll set this to tints and click OK. So now we've created 2 brushes in a matter of seconds. So we can select this one, apply the big one, the first beta brush we made, and you can see how it takes the color of the stroke and it applies it to the brush like this. And now if you want to size this larger or smaller, you do that through strokes where you can go up, so you can make it larger, or you can go smaller, and it diminishes the size of that brush, but it's still stretching it along the path that you have out there. So let's go ahead and put it back at about 1 point, and we'll try the small one. I'll apply it, and so you can see the small one looks small, and it stretches over that path distance. So if I drag this down, you can see it's pretty much doubling this path, and it's stretching it out all the way. So that's kind of how brush artwork for art brushes specifically work. And it's really great to get a certain look and feel, because all of these up here, these are just the raw artwork. But if I go down here and then I apply those brushes that I made, I can select this and go to large, medium, we'll go to small. And even though this one looks big, it's really not. And I'll show you that in a second. This is a small one. Now, if for some reason you accidentally lose your source files like this, let's say you accidentally deleted the file, you no longer had it, you want to do some edits on that artwork, well, you can deconstruct a brush really easy. Just go over here to the brushes panel, drag it to your desktop and drop it. And you'll see it brings it over and it puts the vector art in it. But let's zoom in, because this is important to understand. It also puts a no stroke, no fill, if you look at the swatches panel, bounding box. So just select that. You can drag select it and just delete it. You don't need that. And now you have your native artwork back. And just to show you that even though this is a small brush, I made small brushes. I made large, medium, small, and extra small brushes so that I could use on different stroke lengths to get the look and feel I want. So if I drag this one out, let's say we wanted to restore that, that's as big as that art brush is. It's tiny. And again, this is going to have that no stroke, no fill bounding box around it. So you just want to get rid of that. Like that. So that's brush technology in general. Now, there's a lot you can do with the brush like this. Let's go back to this one. We'll apply the big one on it. And you could color this. Let's say you want to color it this gold color here. You know, we could also go back up and we could select a different type of tool rather than the blob brush to create the art. We can use the paint tool with this artwork, so with this brush selected, with the paint tool selected. We're going to pick a different color, or create a different color. Let's do like a blue. We'll do kind of a blue color here. Let's get a fill. We'll add it to our swatches panel like that. I always like to turn it into global colors like this. Now, if we draw out a different path, you know, maybe we go this way like that. And of course, you can always apply different blend modes to it. So when they overlap, they interact and make different colors, etc. A lot of things you can do with brushes, but this is just a simple way you can create using the blob brush and the eraser tool to carve away and create really unique brushes if you want to. And I want to now show you how you can apply them to a design. So this was, let's zoom out all the way. Here's my rough sketch. This was a thumbnail sketch. It was just tiny that I drew out when I was coming up with this idea to go over. And I refine this by just drawing it out more precisely, knowing exactly where the lines were going. And then easiest of all vector building, using strokes, not doing any shapes or fills, just simple strokes. Here's the simple strokes all in place. And this is what we're going to be applying our brushes to here. So we can bring the brushes panel, we'll put it right here, something like that. And we can apply the strokes to it. So we're not going to be using our beta brushes down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw those away like that. Oops. Remove strokes. Okay. Okay, it doesn't want to get rid of them. Oh, that's because I applied them. Okay, duh. Anyway, we'll just ignore that. So what I want to do is I want to take these paths over here and just show you how I could apply some of these strokes to it to start to give it a more organic feel. Now, all of these are colored the color I want them to be, which is this red. It's a red dragon. So I'm just going to pick different paths over here, but I've broken these out. So this one's more long. This one's quite a bit longer. This is a medium size. You know, here's another medium size. This one's a little shorter. So it's broken. I broke it up. Now, when I created it, I just made one path that did this whole spine going down his back. And then I went in with the broke up this path just to separate them so I could apply a path to, or a brush to each one. So we're going to apply, we'll try the long one here since this is kind of long. We'll take this one. This is kind of a short one, so we'll do a short one here. We'll go to the next one. We could actually use the same one there. Since it's following a different path, it'll give it a slightly different look. We'll select this one. This is the shortest, so we'll use the shortest brush here. This one's pretty long, so let's apply the long one to that. We'll go here. Maybe we do kind of the short one there. And that's all I'm going to do is go through my entire design and figure out which one, which of these paths look good. Now, if I zoom in on these are scales, but these are pretty small. So I can select this one and go to the small one. I can go here and I can apply, I don't know, we can try one that's a little bigger. We'll go to that. Now, if the size just looks kind of goofy, doesn't look that great, then to control it, to control the size, you control the path. So this size of the path is 1. So I think probably maybe cutting it down by half of sorts. We'll try a little more than half, like that. And I think that looks good. So that's how you can customize it and get it looking the way you want. Let's apply some more paths down here. We'll go here like that. So if you wanted that to get smaller, I think that looks fine. So I'm just going to leave it. And then let's move up over here. This one is a big S-curve type shape. So that's a long one. So would you want to use the short one? Well, that's just going to look like pretty smooth. You know, even if you go to the small one here, that looks a little better, but the one that's going to work best will be the large one because you're going to get more character with the movement on it. So that's all I keep in mind as I'm doing this. We'll go here. We'll apply this one there. We'll try this. We can get away with going with the extra small on that one. We'll apply this one, and this one's small, so we'll do the extra small. Let's do a few of the shapes in the face. So we have the ear here. This isn't long, but, you know, wherever it goes around a corner, you want to round it because, for example, let me demonstrate why. So I'm going to take, we'll copy that. If I have a shape that's like this, and it comes to a point in the corner, if I select this and I go, we'll use one of our beta brushes. We'll use the large one. And I go like this. Okay, that looks kind of bad. We'll do this one, the beta brush 2. Notice when it gets here, that just doesn't look too great. So what helps is if you go to the corners and you just put subtle little rounds on them, it's going to flow around those shapes a lot better. And so I've done that when I've set up some of these files. Now, not all of them, but like if you zoom in on the top of the ear here, you can see I have these little rounds on them. That's to prevent that from the vertex of that corner, you know, getting really sharp and not looking as good as it could. So if I select this and I use this brush, I think that looks great. We'll select this one. We can use the same brush here, like that. That looks good. This one, I'm going to try, let's see. No, that looks good. I like that. I'll leave it. We'll go here. This is a small one, but you don't always have to do extra small. That's kind of boring. So I'll go one up like that. And I think a little character in the face is fine. So I'll leave that. I'll go here. So this this part on his brow goes up, has a small little round in the corner here. And again, we'll apply this brush there. We'll select this one. This is small, so we'll use that. And of course, the pupil in the eye is small, so we'll use that one like that. And if I think this is getting too fat, this is where I would go in and I would adjust the size. So maybe that should only be like 0.5, and I think that looks a lot better. So you want to pay attention to that as you're using this methodology. We'll just finish up just part of his mouth. So let's do this one. This one would probably be good with the medium size. We'll do this. We have this tooth is broken into 2 pieces. Just because it looks better sometimes to do that to get a shape that looks good. I think that looks fine. And the tongue coming out of his mouth, maybe this could be that. We'll try. No, we don't want to do that one. 3. That looks better. More smooth like a tongue should be. And we'll do that one. And we'll do this one. Now this one I think is a little too big. So I go over here and I go, yeah, that looks better. Just making it get down in size. So that's it. It's not hard to do this at all. But you can see it's starting to look way more organic. I mean, the regular vectors aren't organic, but now it's taking on that organic flair. Now, if I take the time to do all of it, what I end up with is this. And this really does look nice and organic, almost as if you used a brush pen to draw it out. If I go to keyline view, it's still just vector raw paths with those art brushes applied to it, but it works really well. And I always like to keep, if I'm working on artwork like this, I always keep source to the originally applied art brush to the paths, so I can always go back to it if I ever want to report something. So if I take all of these, you wouldn't want to deliver this to like a client or final art files, because if you scale it up, it might mess up the aesthetic or rewrap some of those brushes, and you don't want that. You want it, if you like it, you want to lock it in. So in that case, you want to select everything, and we're just going to go to object to expand appearance, and it will expand everything. And then we can go to unite. And you can see it's now a compound path. If I hide the vectors, this is all what the artwork looks like now. By the way, hide the vectors is Command H. If I go to keyline view, you can see it's just nothing but vector fills now, and no longer strokes with art brushes wrapped onto it. So that's what you want to do if you're wanting to finalize and deliver your artwork. You want to make sure to expand it to make sure it's nice and clean. Now, in this context, let's go ahead and close this one. I'll reposition it down here. In this context, I like using artwork in this context for this artwork on a dark background or a light background. Now, when you're experimenting, you don't need to expand your art. I always keep it editable, but in this context, I want to have a nice drop shadow on this. So I'm just going to copy it, Command-C, Command-F, and then we'll go ahead and apply a black to this. And then since I'm using global colors, I can go to tint, and on this tint color, I'm just going to tint it to about 15. And then I'll just use my nudge keys on the keyboard. We'll go 7 down, 6 over. I'll copy it, select this art, Command-B, paste behind, and you get a really cool kind of drop shadow. That might even be able to go a little lighter. Let's go to like 12. That looks good. So this is how I'd use it on a light colored background. This style works awesome on a dark color or photographic background. So here's one I mocked up showing it in gold and the Dragon Room. By the way, that's totally fictitious, but I like the name. So it works really great for this kind of context as well. I even think this would look really cool if it was kind of using the LCD lighting behind colored shapes and stuff on a background. Maybe it's a stone wall or something like that. I think that'd be really cool. Now, the next thing I want to show you, so everything I've done up to this point, I've used a mouse. Now, I should point out that the next thing I want to show you is using a stylus, specifically a Xencelabs tablet and stylus. Now, I don't have that set up, so I'm going to take about 15 seconds to set that up between what you see here and what you're going to see next. Okay, I have the tablet set up, and the specific tablet I'm using, I'm going to turn on this layer. This is Xencelabs medium-sized tablet, and it also has their QuickKeys, which is like, in Adobe Illustrator, I'm always talking about using keyboard shortcuts. Well, think of this as a device you can program with your own sets of keyboard shortcuts, whether you're working in Photoshop or in this context, Illustrator. This device here clips onto the side of this, or you can position this anywhere on your desk. Maybe this goes by your left hand that's by your keyboard if you're right-handed. Like I'm right-handed, and I'm using the larger stylus on this pad. I prefer that, but you actually get 2 pins, but I'm using this one to demonstrate on this Xencelabs tablet. But this QuickKeys, it's awesome. You don't even have to buy the tablet to get access to the QuickKeys. You could buy their QuickKeys, and it allows you to program it just like keyboard shortcuts in Illustrator to do all kinds of things. Undo, shift, redo, option, new layer, command, select. You can customize this to be your own commands you use on a regular basis if you're doing certain things like I do in Illustrator. And so I think that's awesome that they sell this just by itself, along with a package deal like this where you can get it with a tablet and the 2 pins. But I want to thank Xencelabs for sending this tablet, because that's what we're going to be using to do what we're going to be doing next. So I'm going to click on this layer, and I'm calling this testing ground, because I'm going to show you how to create a brush that you can use with your tablet. And yes, you can use the art brushes we just did here. Actually, everything that I've done up to this point before showing you the tablet, you could do all of that same methodology using the stylus. So it's just better ergonomics. If you don't want to use a mouse anymore, you could use that. But that said, it works for everything I showed you. So if you go back to the art brush here and we select the long one from my Linework brushes, let's pick a color. We'll do this, the blue color here. And you could go over here and you can just draw out whatever brush you want. You go over here. You go the opposite way and draw that out. So it's a lot easier to control, obviously, since you're using a stylus, because it's like holding a pencil or a pen, and it's normal ergonomics, I guess you would call it. Like if I wanted to sign my name, you know, with my brush, that looks, I don't know if I'd sign anything using a vector brush in Illustrator, but that's how it works. So we're going to, what is the benefit of using a stylus? Well, you get native controls that work more fluidly. We're mimicking that organic look with an art brush. It's static art wrapped on a path, and it looks cool, but you want to get some a little more organic, then you're going to have to move to a device that allows that. So if I go up here, notice you have the touch calligraphic brush. This is default in Adobe Illustrator. If you open up a new document, actually, let's just do that. Let's go new. And normally I'll use my profile like for GS print, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the generic print, and we'll open up on horizontal and click OK. Notice this is what's going to show up in Adobe Illustrator. You're going to get an art brush. That's this charcoal one. This is default. You're going to get this denim seam, which I don't know how often people are going to use that pattern brush, but whatever. But notice it'll be in here. You'll get this touch calligraphic brush. Now, the touch calligraphic brush, I've never really used it. I've created other calligraphic brushes. Like here you can see a couple different sizes. This one's 15 points, this is 15, this one's 3, and this one's 5, so on and so forth. So these are all calligraphic brushes at different size, different settings. The touch calligraphic brush is like having a one weight size, and you're going, well, just adjust it. So if we double click on the calligraphic brush, well, you're not going to be able to adjust it because it's just set. It's kind of, in my opinion, not very useful, but it allows you to do stuff like this, almost like a marker, you know, and you can see I'm using the art brush, so it's just wrapping that onto a path, those vectors that I'm drawing out. You don't have to do it this way. Here's what you can do, and this is the beauty of the calligraphic brush, is you can go to blob brush, and so you could still select the touch calligraphic brush, but you have the blob brush selected. And if I go ahead and draw this out like this, you can see this is just a shape. It's not a path. So that's nice. It gives you more action to be able to do something that looks a little more native to like drawing with a marker, let's say. Let's go and grab a different color. Oops, I don't want it outline. I want it fill, like that. And we could get back to this. And if we go like this, or the top of it, that's fine. And if you go to transparency and you go multiply, you can get something kind of cool. And it'll remember, every time you use a brush, it's going to remember your last setting, whether it's the color, whether it's the blend mode. We still have blend mode on. So if I go back to this and I go like this, it's going to, it didn't remember the blend mode. Okay, well, a lot of times it will, like that. And so the next time you apply it, well, that's interesting. Okay, well, I guess it won't. I used to have that happen all the time where it remembered it. But anyway, this is how you can control it. Touch calligraphic brush, not that useful in my opinion. But these other ones, you could take this one, and if I change the color so we can see it, let's do that. It doesn't matter on the stroke. We'll just do the fill color. Make sure you're on the calligraphic brush. So if I just pull like this, well, that's just one continuous weight. So if you dive into, click into this, you can see these are set to be one continuous weight, fixed, fixed, and fixed. You can adjust the angle if you wanted to. If you didn't want it round, maybe you want it more oval, you could adjust this like that. You could adjust the angle if you wanted it to be like almost a 45-degree angle like this, just whatever you want. And you could make this random if you wanted to. Like maybe you did this randomly like that. Or maybe you wanted to take advantage of using a stylus, so you could use pressure sensitivity like that. We could go over here. Maybe the variation could match. Click OK. So instead of creating just one line stroke, you could pull it out and you could get these nice thick and thins like this, so it's more organic. So that's why calligraphic brush combined with the blob brush really can produce something nice. Now let's get back to our file. We won't save this here. And on the testing ground, I have some prefabricated ones, a 4-point, a 2-point, a 1-point. I'm going to create a calligraphic brush. Now, to create it, you don't have to have any pre-existing vector art. You just select calligraphic brush, click OK, and you can name it whatever you want. So I'll name this one 0.5 points, like that. And then I can determine what I want the setting. Well, I want to take advantage of having pressure because I'm using a nice Xencelabs tablet with the Wacom tablet. I usually don't adjust my rounding. I want that to stay fixed. Now, if I want it thinner or if I want more pressure, the pressure will give me the thicker. And so I want to set the variable. We'll go here. I don't think we want this much. Let's go ahead and adjust this. I want to keep this. Actually, I'm going to name this one. We'll call this one small. And just so I can see it. If you're creating a set, keep your naming standards consistent. Like that. Actually, I want to make this small, so we'll go extra small. There we go. And then we're going to go here and we're going to set this to really small. You can go down to 0.5 point. And I don't want the variation to be too big, so we'll do 0.5 point there. But I think that'll work. We'll click OK. You can see it added here. You can see I have different sizes over here. So I think I'm going to take this one and move it so it's the extra small, small, medium, and large. And I have tooltips turned on. I usually do that when I'm using brushes. Usually when I record, I turn it off just so every time I'm hovering over an icon, it doesn't bring up those little call outs and stuff. But when you're doing this, it's easier to see what you're going to get if you just hover over it and it gives you the name. So I do like it in context of brushes. So let's go ahead and do kind of some testing on how this works. So I'm going to grab the blob brush. I have a specific color. I'm just going to change this to black. I'm going to take the largest blob brush here. Let's test it. Like, that's good. Let's zoom out a bit. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in first. Then we're going to use the large blob brush of mine, and I'll just do a freestyle. Like that. This guy needs a nose. I'm just winging this off the top of my head. Now, as I'm drawing this, it's creating those filled shapes. Now, I always like to go in, and this is where having different sizes is good, because if I went in on this, I would want to, that brush is a little small. Let's do one that's a little bigger. So I'll go in, and when I'm doodling, if I'm working with the pen or whatever, I like working out these areas, kind of like I'm showing here, like that. And I can get bigger with this one too if I put more weight on it. Let's draw his other eye. Maybe his other eye is just kind of bulging. There we go. Needs a mouth. If you don't like something like that's a little wobbly, I'll just Command Z. Let's try it the other way. There we go. My hand's getting a little wobbly. I'm getting kind of, I get nervous when my cat watches me work. Okay. Now on this one, notice this one didn't fuse, so all you'd have to do is just select both of them, and you could just use your Pathfinder and just go Unite, and it will fuse. So it's not a problem. You just want to make sure you always have the blob brush selected. I wasn't doing that, so it wasn't going to fuse. Let's go ahead and deselect this. I think we need to fix this little area here. Kind of like that. We'll give him a nice mouth. He's somewhat happy. Give him teeth. Needs an eye over here. There we go. Now he needs hair. Let's give him hair, and then we'll color him, and then I'll continue. So he needs hair. There we go. Okay. Now, all this is done. If I go to keyline view again, it's fused all the artwork together. So if you want to color it, the easiest way to do it is you can select it, go to Object, go down to Clipping Mask, to Compound Path, and go Release. I always have a keyboard shortcut for Make, and I've been meaning to create a release one, but I never have. So on this case, I do have to go to the pull-down menu, and we'll go Release. You'll want to go up to Object. You might have to ungroup it a few times, like this. Okay, we'll deselect the outer group. The inner shapes are black, so we'll color those white, like this. So now we have our artwork. We have our donut. We can actually select this, and I'll go minus front. And I'm going to click into this, select the inner, copy it, paste in front there. Now we can take our dude, and we'll just mix colors here. Let's turn this to CMYK. When it comes to RGB, I do not think RGB when I'm coloring artwork. It's just, oh, that's a good nose color. There we go. And then we need some orange, maybe a dirty orange. Put that there. And this is where I try to balance colors. So orange. I wasn't intending to do a little colored illustration, but I don't know. It's kind of fun. Do that, and we'll make the bottom green. I'm not even going to worry about making these global colors. I think I'll change this color. Make it a little paler. Like that. Maybe this one is pink eye. I think this one needs to be brighter. There we go. I'll let you guys name this dude. I have no idea what he is. Okay, let's get back on task. So here was our sketch for the dragon. And you saw me use the art brushes, the line work brushes that I created. And that works really great if you don't have access to a tablet. This is the way a tablet works, though, is we're going to use the calligraphic brush, and I'll start with the small one. It might be too small for some of the things I want to do, but let's zoom in. It's always good to zoom in. We're going to use the blob brush, of course, and on the color, I'm just going to use black. We're not going to worry about the color yet. I'm just doing the inked line work. And you can see it gives you a preview of how big the brush is. And that seems to be about right. So I'll just start drawing. And you can see I can get a nice organic looking shape just by drawing it with the tablet. So it works really well to get that same kind of organic flair. And then, of course, if you don't want to go back, and I could draw on top of this to fill in these areas as well, or you can just select them as you're going. And if you decide it needs a little more, like maybe you think it needs to get a little thicker at the top of the ear, you want to adjust that organic like that, you can do that. So we'll go select that. And notice the tip is a lot smaller here, so I can focus on that profile shape a little more. And I'm purposely, for lack of better terms, getting jiggy with it by, I want that imperfectness to be there. And then I always like going in on areas like this so it kind of fuses into that shape nicely. Like that. I might put a little round there. Kind of like that. But you can see how it works really well. And if I go really softly, we'll do the line on the eyebrow here, or the brow. If I just barely push, I can go from that to a little thicker. Now this is small brush, but sometimes when you're zoomed in, you want to do that. But we could go to a larger brush. Let's say I decide a little larger brush would work better. I can still use what I did. I can just draw on top of it. Like this. And just give it that more imperfect action. Let's do the entire thing. I don't know what they call it, but like in Japanese and Chinese circles, when they draw out the kanji characters, which is a pictographic kind of language, they use those big fat brush pens, and they're imperfect. Some of them look really precise, though. I mean, the people have been doing a long time. So it's just about capturing that kind of hand done flair. We're mimicking it, whether we're using the line brushes or we're using the tablet here, but not that it's any less authentic than it would be if you just drew it with a pen or a brush on paper. We're just going for a certain aesthetic. So that's all I do here to clean it up, is I just go in and finesse those little areas. Let's do a little larger one here. I think I'm going to go. It is fun doing this kind of inking, though. This is the perfect kind of work to do while listening to an audiobook, good audiobook. Now, I'm obviously not going to do this whole thing, but I wanted to show you how you can use scatter brushes, to pull off that same aesthetic that we did with the art brushes. So you can see you can get a really cool aesthetic going here. That applies to any kind of drawing. Now, I'm just doing line work. You can colorize with this. You can add detail if you wanted to. So you could, maybe you get all the line work done in black. You could go in and colorize on a different layer underneath and do red if you wanted to make it kind of outlines and fill colors to pull that off. So it just depends on, what your design and artwork is and what you ultimately want it to be. Let's go ahead and do this eye and then we'll call it good. So again, selecting the art brush, I'm just drawing in black again. So if we go here, you can see we're just drawing in black, but we're using the smallest calligraphic brush, and we can start out there, or we can use, I think this is the medium one. Yeah, the medium one. And again, if I apply less pressure, oops, that's not the tablet's fault, that's my fault. There we go. I personally think that I don't like that. I'm going to go to the smaller. I personally think when it comes to using tablet and Wacom, or I'm sorry, Xencelabs, like their pen tool, any kind of tablet for that matter, pixel-related artwork is a lot more adaptive to that methodology. Vector can work, but it's a little more nitpicky at times, and that's not anything to do with the tablet manufacturers. It's just the fact that it's vector art, and it's just a different technology than painting with pixels. I mean, there's a lot you can't do. Oh, that was horrible. That was horrible. There's a lot you can't do with vector art in terms of brushes that you can do very easily. Like my daughter right now, Savannah, she's been using their display, Xencelabs display, and doing Twitch streams showcasing her doing her illustration using Clip Studio Paint, and she's already awesome with doing illustration in that app, but it's next level when she's using the Xencelabs display to pull it off. Because she's, unlike what I'm doing here, I'm on my iMac M1 and I'm just inking it, looking at the screen, but the tablet is actually under my right hand as I'm drawing. Whereas Savannah, using a display, Illustrator's on the display, so she's drawing as if Illustrator's the canvas she's drawing on. So it's that setup, in my opinion, works better for doing what I'm trying to do in a pixel environment than even if it does in Illustrator. I mean, I'd be doing the same thing if I was on a display here, but vectors can get a little wonky at times. And you have to realize that Illustrator created vector brushes from day one, and they haven't really updated that technology in like a long time. So there's a lot that could be done to improve it, in my opinion, that would make tablets a lot more useful for those who use Adobe Illustrator. But this does work really good. I think I need a little more variation here. Okay. So that's all it takes to do this. Oh, one thing I do want to show you. I almost forgot. Let's go ahead. We'll do this line. So if I'm creating this, let's... Okay. Okay, let's say I created that and I decided, I want to round that off. So much like what you could do that I showed you with the line work, you could go and grab the eraser tool or the pen I'm using, the Stylus. If I just flip it around with my right hand, it turns it into an eraser. And if I go like this, I can erase it. And so that's really a lot easier than trying to grab the eraser tool. Now, it uses, in Adobe Illustrator, that is, it uses the same algorithm that the eraser tool has. So in my opinion, like if I do this and I like it just like that, when I let go, it'll kind of oversimplify it. So you have that limitation. That's what I'm talking about with the technology in Adobe Illustrator. It could be improved. Whether or not they'll do that, who knows? But this is how you can go in. So I usually have to keep bumping it with this eraser to kind of edit the profile the way I want. So it's not perfect, but that has nothing to do with the tablet manufacturer. That's on Illustrator itself. But I just wanted to show you the eraser because you can use the eraser. Actually, The stylus I'm using has 3 programmable buttons, so you can even make it do other things you want. And of course, if you have the QuickKeys set up, the device they have that comes with this tablet, I can, if your motor skills work out where you memorize those QuickKeys you set up, that could save so much time. It's like, I wish I would have known about that before. I actually like their QuickKeys better in my Stream Deck that has buttons. It's more intuitive in terms of where I could position it on my workspace to help me build as I'm creating my vector art. So this is how I can use Stylus and the calligraphic brush. Now, the one thing about the calligraphic brush, so the art brush, you could take an art brush, drop it on the desktop, get access to the source artwork. Just keep in mind you're going to run into that no fill, no stroke bounding box you get rid of, but you get access to the brush. If I go over to the big, large calligraphic brush and I drag it out and drop, well, you can't. That's because these are brushes that aren't actual vector assets. They're just technology built into Illustrator, and you can adjust them. So you can always go into these and you can adjust this, whether you, how much the pressure is and the size, the roundness again, the angle. But bottom line, this is just embedded in AI. It's not a set of brushes. That's why nobody sells calligraphic brush sets for Illustrator, other than they could set up these, but it's not really an ownable set, because anybody could set that up. So, by the way, in the exercise files, I'll have all of these in here along with my brushes, and I'll show you some of that in just a little bit. So once we've inked out all of our line work using the stylus with the Xencelabs tablet, this is what I ended up with. And I really like the aesthetic, the look, the feel of this. I think it's a lot more precision oriented in terms of refinement than using an art brush, because you can zoom in and you can craft it. And that's all this is just me zooming in and fusing all the artwork and paying attention to how those nuances work. But you can come up with something really nice. And like I showed you with the art brush itself, it also works great on a colored, dark, or photographic background. So this one, I went with the Forbidden Temple or something, like the Forbidden City. That's what it is in China, because it's a golden dragon. So I felt this works. Now, one thing I want to point out, I'm also including with the exercise files for this movie my drag and draw. And if you say that fast enough, it sounds like you're saying drag and draw vector brush set. So this first little group here was the one I showed you in this file. But you'll get the full set, which has a little more organic ones here. They're pretty splotchy, and you can combine them all together, and it will allow you to pull off really cool line work. So I want to thank Xencelabs for letting me and my daughter, Savannah. Savannah's rocking the 24-inch display. I'll put a link to her Twitch channel, so you can check out some of that content she creates using Clip Studio Pro. Savannah can also rock vector art too. I made her, when she began working with me, she worked with me for 5 years. She's out on her own now doing freelance, but when she worked with me, I made her read my book and then kind of scrutinized her vectors, but she's gotten to a point now, she's a faster vector builder than I am. She does beautiful artwork in and of her own using Clip Studio Pro. She loves the Xencelabs display she's been using. So anyway, I'll share that link so you can check it out. And once again, I want to thank Xencelabs for letting me and Savannah borrow the products and sharing it with those who watch the People of Process channel. And their tablet was easy to set up, like super easy. And Just no hassle whatsoever, which is nice because that's not always the case with tablets I've used in the past. The Xencelabs QuickKeys, in my opinion, is the best product you could use for setting up keyboard shortcuts in Illustrator. You know I love keyboard shortcuts, so you guys consider if you want more than just your F keys, and I have all my F keys filled. Now I'm rethinking my workspace just because of that single device. It's pretty cool. You can use it obviously with Photoshop, or for your computer system, you can save macros on your QuickKeys device as well. So it's really cool. It works with Mac OS, Windows, and even Linux. So that's pretty incredible. I like it because you can position it right next to your keyboard. So if you use a mouse or a stylus, the tablet, and a tablet that is, your hand can easily reach the quick keys to automate your creative process. And that's the best part of refining your own creative process. So I put a link to the exact product that I've demonstrated, which is their medium-sized bundle tablet. You get 2 pins, you get the quick keys, you get a carrying case and other items. It's a pretty sweet deal. So if you enjoy People of Process channel, give this movie a like, comment on my content, ask a question, share it, or even better, become a member. Doing so helps me to grow the channel and create more content to help those who watch improve their skills and learn new methodology. Until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. And as always, and I do mean this, I hope this content helps you improve your own creative process.